In this video, we're going to take a look at how to trace around images and the do's and don'ts regarding that. I'll show you how you can do it. So if we take a look under the bitmap layers on the right hand side, you can see that I've got quite a few bitmap layers loaded in and quite a few images loaded in. So I've got this sparrow first of all. This is a fairly straightforward trace. Reason being is that it's just a black and white image. So black and white images, really easy to do. Then we've got this one here, which is more of a coloured image. I'll show you how you can do this. And this is also quite easy to do. And you can group or link certain colours together if you need to when using either a coloured logo or a coloured piece of clip art. So tracing objects only really works on logos or clip art, for instance. And I've also got this picture, so it's a proper photograph. And I've loaded this in to show you how it doesn't work. So it will not work on something like this. The reason being is that the tool needs one colour to trace around. This has so many different colours in there, it's impossible to bring it down to a manageable amount that the program will be able to trace around. Okay, so we'll do that last. So if I go back to Sparrow, let's start off with an easy one. So this is just a black and white image. So to open up the tool, it's called the bitmap to vector tool, and it's located at the top here. So click that and it will open up the bitmap to vector tool. Now, I'll be completely honest with you, most of the settings on here are actually 99% of the time fine. The one thing that you have to do is reduce the colours. So even though this is a black and white image, if you take a look down the bottom in the colour palette, you can see I've got all these different shades of black. And if I come down, they go into grey and then eventually go into white. So there's 256 colours here. And it's already brought that down from a larger amount when importing into the software. So I need to really, for a black and white image, bring this down to two colours, black and white. If I were to create the vectors now, it wouldn't give me what I was looking for. So what I need to do is bring this down to black and white. And the way to do that is to click on Reduce Colours. So as soon as I select that, let's move it out of the way. As soon as I select it, it goes down to 32 colours. And I can bring that down and it basically merges the colours into each other. Okay, and I can bring it down to two colours and select apply. So now the only two colours that I have are white and black. Now I'll just explain to you the white colour that's over the top of the black. Basically the white is a primary colour and the black is the secondary colour. So if I wanted to make the black the primary colour, just left click on the black and it becomes primary. If I want to make the white the secondary colour, then right click on it and that becomes the secondary colour. Now you also have an option what colour to trace around. So you've got primary or the secondary. So if I go secondary, it's going to choose the white colour. So let's go back to primary. And then I'm just going to select Create Vectors. So that's created the vectors for me. If I drop the contrast slider bar down, which is here, so it washes out, you can see that it's created some nice vectors for me. Okay, and it hasn't followed all of this pixelation. Now, if I were to undo that, and if I were to use, let's say, create centerline, now what this does, it creates a line in between the two outside edges. The only problem with doing this is that it creates these little shoots that come off. So you'd have to delete those afterwards. So if I create the vectors, you can see that if I take a look here, that it's created these little pieces that come off. So you'd have to delete those afterwards. Also, if I click on it, it's not all joined up. So you'd also have to join all of that up afterwards. But it gives you a good starting point. So if I delete that, let's go back to create boundary. Now, most of the time, this is what I use it for, creating a boundary. So let's take a look at the speckle size and the smoothness. So first of all, let's look at the smoothness. So if I do that, let's say 1, create vectors, and then if I take a look, let's say here, you can see what's happened is these lines are quite angular. So this affects how smooth it goes around this. So if I undo that and bring it back to 100, you can see I get really curvy lines. Now, almost all of the time I keep that at 75, unless I'm doing quite blocky text. You've also got something called speckle size. So if I zoom out, let's say there, you see how I've got a vector around here. Now, this speckle size acts as a tolerance. Now, I don't really tend to use it because I find it just quicker to just delete any object that I don't want. So if I were to set this speckle size to be, let's say, quite high, so it's only going to create vectors around something that is larger than 20 pixels. So I would imagine that it wouldn't create this vector now. So if I undo that and create vectors, you can see that it's not created a vector around that. So it's sort of a pixel tolerance. But again, I tend to leave this at 2, almost 99% of the time. So let's undo that, create the vectors. So there you can see my vectors for this sparrow. Now, if I wanted to make this smaller, as I said in the last video, I've just brought this in to a specific size. Just literally grab all of these vectors, go into transform, and then I can just resize this to whatever size I want, and then move it around. Okay. So let's delete that. Let's bring up my contrast. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do it using a coloured image. So if I go to this one here, you can see that I've got this coloured image. Now, it's exactly the same process. So if I go to the bitmap to vector tool, reduce the colours. What I tend to do normally is bring this straight away down to 2 colours and see what becomes merged together and what I've lost. So you can see that I've lost all of the white portion in the background. So what I would tend to do then is start bringing colours back until I see the part that I want. So you can see that lighter colour has come through now. So select apply. And then all that I need to do is select left click on the colour that I want to trace around and then create vectors. And it will create vectors around that. If I wanted to use the darker colour, now you can see that there's actually 2 darker colours here. So if I were to use one of those and create the vectors, you can see that it's not really created what I want. So you can see that it's just created all these little bits. That's because if I zoom in, that's because some of these are actually different colours to the actual darker colour. So let's move that over and undo that. What I'm going to do is link them so they join together. So if I zoom in here, hopefully you'll be able to see. So I can just about see that here, this is a different shade to the darker colour here. So let's select one of the colours, so left click and then right click the second one And then there's a little chain at the top of the two colours here. This means that it's going to link them together, and it's going to turn the secondary colour into the same colour as the primary colour. So if I click on that, they now have a line going between them, and you can't make out that different shade here. So if I were to create the vectors now, you can see that it's created exactly what I want. So if I go back to the original bitmap layer, you can see that it's created this quite complex set of vectors for me. So this is how you use the bitmap to vector tool. Now I'm going to show you what not to do and how you won't be able to use it. So if I delete those vectors and turn off the bitmap to vector, and let's go to this image. So this is a proper full-blown photograph. Okay, and this just will not work. So if I go to bitmap to vector, and what I've been showing you is that you have to reduce the colors. You have to reduce the colors in order for the program to use one color to trace around. So it just creates a tracing around that color. Now, because this has got so many different colors and it's got so much detail to it, you just won't be able to do it. So if I reduce this down and go to 32 colors first of all, now if I bring it right the way down, you can see that it creates that. Now that may be something that you want. So if you did want that, you just select the purple and it will create vectors around just that purple. Now if I wanted to bring colour back into it, let's say like so, you can see that I don't really know what I can use. So if I select apply, and let's say I did want to create vectors around the purple, create vectors, and then drop that down, you can see that it's not really that great. Okay, and I've only got 5 colours here, and it's lost a lot of the detail. So this is why it's really, really hard to do this. Okay, so best thing to use is clip art or logos to do this. If you need to do something like this photograph, then what I would suggest doing is actually tracing around it manually and drawing around all of the parts, and then you can create your own vector artwork. Okay, so that's how to use the bitmap to vector tool and how to trace images.